The Clinical Evaluation of Language Fundamentals 5th Edition. Authors of the CELF-5 are Elizabeth H. Wilg, Eleanor Seymour, and Wayne A. Seckard. The publisher is Pearson Education, Inc. in 2013. The cost of the CELF-5 Q Global Complete Kit is $699. The Paper Complete Kit is $735. The age range of the CELF-5 is 5 years to 21 years and 11 months. Time to administer is 34 to 42 minutes for core test and 50 to 62 minutes for core receptive language and expressive language test. It is a broad, authentic, and norm reference test. The CELF-5 includes these 15 subtests, which we will discuss further into the presentation. Administration of the CELF-5 requires that you always be in a well-lit room. Reinforcing statements are allowed, but you should not tell the client if their answers are correct or incorrect. Repetitions of the verbal stimuli is only allowed sometimes, so make sure to check the examiner's manual. Short breaks may be taken in between tests, but never during the middle of one. Rules for the CELF-5. The start point. Record forms show recommended age-based start points. These should be used to help shorten test times, but also help ensure students experience success the first time they attempt a test. The youngest client that is able to take the test should always start at number 1. The reversal rule. If a client does not start on number 1, but he or she does not obtain a perfect score on their first 2 questions, then go back to item 1 and administer all items that were before the original start point. If a student's start point is number 1, there is no need to apply the reversal rule. Discontinue rule. This indicates where to stop testing and are designed to minimize testing time without losing information about the student's abilities. Discontinue rules are stated at the beginning of every test in the record form. The objective of the sentence comprehension subtest is to evaluate the student's ability to interpret spoken sentences of increasing length and complexity and select the pictures that illustrate referential meaning of the sentences. Alright, Molly, so we're going to start our first assessment with sentence comprehension. Look at these pictures. I'm going to point to the one that shows, I can wear this. Now you point to the picture that shows, I can eat this. On the record form, correct responses are in bold. The objective of the linguistic concept subtest is to evaluate the student's ability to interpret spoken directions with basic concepts, which requires logical operations such as inclusion and exclusion, orientation and timing, and identifying mentioned objects from among several pictured choices. Point to the ball. Point to the row of apples. It is important to wait until you are certain that the student has completed the response to an item before presenting the next item. Circle 1 for a correct response and 0 for an incorrect response. The word structure subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to apply word structure rules, which is morphology, to mark inflections, deviations, and comparison. Select and use appropriate pronouns to refer to people, objects, and possessive relationships. I'm going to show you some pictures and say some things about them. I want you to help me by finishing some of the things I say. This boy is standing, and this boy is
sitting.
On the record form, correct responses are in brackets. Circle 1 for a correct response and 0 for an incorrect response. The word classes subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to understand relationships between words based on semantic class features, function, or place or time of occurrence. I'm going to say some words and show you some pictures. 2 of the words go together. Look and listen as I say the words puppy, frog, and dog. Puppy and dog are the 2 words that go together the best. Correct responses are in bold on the record form. Circle 1 if the student selects both correct answers, and 0 if the student selects 1 or more incorrect words. The following direction subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to interpret spoken directions of increasing length and complexity. Follow the stated order of mention of familiar shapes with varying characteristics, such as color, size, or location, and identify from among several choices the pictured objects that were mentioned. These abilities reflect short-term and procedural memory capacities. Now I would like you to point to the pictures in the same order I tell you. Point to the circle and a square. The following directions record form advises you to wait until you are certain that the student has completed his or her response to an item before presenting the next item. Circle 1 for a correct response and 0 for an incorrect response. The Formulated Sentences subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to formulate complete, semantically and grammatically correct spoken sentences of increasing length and complexity, such as simple, compound, and complex sentences, using given words like car, if, or because, and contextual constraints imposed by illustrations. These abilities reflect the capacity to integrate semantic, syntactic, and pragmatic rules and constraints while using working memory. Here is a picture of people in a library. I will use the word book in a sentence to talk about this picture. This girl is reading a book. Or I could say, a book is on the table. Here is another picture. Now you make a sentence about this picture using the word reading. You must make your sentence about something in the picture, and you must use the word reading. Look at the picture to help you think of what to say.
The dad is reading.
You should write the student's responses verbatim on the record form. The Recalling Sentences subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to listen to spoken sentences of increasing length and complexity and repeat the sentences without changing word meaning and content, word structure, or sentence structure. This skill is required for following directions in academic instructions, writing to dictation, copying and note-taking, learning vocabulary, and related words and subject content. Now I'm going to say a sentence. I want you to listen carefully and repeat what I say. Let's try. My sister's in the 6th grade.
My sister's in the 6th grade.
Responses should be recorded by editing the printed sentence or writing the student's response verbatim in the space provided. Circle 3 if the sentence is repeated exactly. Circle 2 if there is one error. Circle 1 if there are 2 or 3 errors. And circle 0 if there are 4 or more errors. The objective of the Understanding Spoken Paragraph subtest is to evaluate the student's ability to sustain attention and focus while listening to spoken paragraphs of increasing length and complexity, create meaning from oral narratives and text, answer questions about the content of the information given, and use critical thinking strategies for interpreting beyond the given information. Listen carefully to what I'm going to read to you. Afterward, I will ask you some questions about what I read. This story is called Rudy and Lewis. It had been raining for 2 days, and the twins were tired of playing indoors. They wished it would stop raining. Rudy wanted to play baseball. Lewis wanted to play on the new swings at the playground, and then play baseball with his brother Rudy. As they got ready for bed that night, they could still hear the rain coming down on the roof. When they woke up the next morning, they didn't hear the rain. Instead, Rudy and Lewis heard bird chirping outside their window. Why did Rudy and Lewis wish it would stop raining?
To play.
What did Rudy and Lewis hear before they went to bed?
The rain.
When did they hear birds chirping?
In the morning.
You should read the title and the paragraph to the student at a conversational level and rate, and then read the associated questions. Circle 1 for a correct response and 0 for an incorrect response. The word definition subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to analyze words for their meaning features, define words by referring to class relationships and shared meanings, and describe meanings that are unique to the reference or instance. I'm going to tell you a word and use it in a sentence. I will then ask you to define the word, which means to tell what that word means. You can define or explain what a word means by telling what kind of thing it is and by telling some things about it. The word is little, as in Dad said, there is a little left in the box. Define little.
My baby brother is little and small.
You should record the student's response in the space provided. If the response is vague or incomplete, but you think the student is on the right track, you can prompt for more complete response by saying, "Can you tell me more?" The sentence assembly subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to formulate grammatically acceptable and semantically meaningful sentences by manipulating and transforming given words and word groups.
Here are some words that can be made into two different sentences. Tall, the boy is. The boy is tall. This sentence tells something. That's one way of doing it. Here's another sentence with the same words. Is the boy tall? This sentence asks something. Now I want you to try it. Make two sentences using the words I showed you. Saw the girl, the boy. Use only those words.
The boy saw the girl. The girl saw the boy.
On the record form, you should circle 1 for 2 correct responses and 0 for only 1 correct response. The semantic relationship subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to interpret sentences that make comparisons, identify location or direction, specify time relationships, include serial order, and are expressive and passive voice.
I'm going to read you some problems to figure out. Each problem has 2 correct answers. Let's do one and see if you can tell me 2 correct answers. A man is bigger than a house, button, spoon, or plane. There are 2 choices that are correct. Which 2 are they?
Button and spoon.
Correct responses are indicated in bold. The student must give both correct responses for an item to be scored as correct. The pragmatics profile serves to obtain information regarding development of verbal and nonverbal social communication skills. For each item, circle the number that best describes how often the student demonstrates that skill or behavior. The reading comprehension subtest measures the ability to interpret factual and inferential information presented in written paragraphs. This subtest serves to evaluate the student's ability to sustain attention and focus while reading paragraphs of increasing length and complexity, create meaning from narratives and text, answer questions about the content of the information given, and use critical thinking strategies for interpreting beyond the information given.
Now I'm going to ask you some questions about the story. You may look at it to help you remember and answer the questions. Answer these questions as best as you can. What was the story about?
James was nervous to give his presentation for Mr. Lopez's class.
What did James do after getting out of school?
He went home and turned on the TV.
Correct responses are provided for each item. If the student's response is vague or incomplete and could possibly be correct, probe once with, "Can you tell me more?" Circle 1 for a correct response and 0 for an incorrect response. The structured writing subtest measures the ability to construct one or more written sentences to complete a given story title and story stem.
Here is a paragraph about summer break. Sam could barely contain his excitement on the last day of school, and each minute seemed like it took an hour to go by. It wasn't that he disliked school. Now finish that incomplete sentence. Now write another sentence here that follows the first 2 sentences and finishes the story.
Scoring for this subtest is based on if the sentences are complete, their structure, and their grammar. The pragmatics activities checklist serves to identify verbal and nonverbal behaviors that a student exhibits in social interactions that may interfere with effective communication in the home and school settings. This checklist provides speech-language pathologists and other education professionals with opportunities to observe the student's pragmatics behaviors during authentic conversational interactions.
We're going to play tic-tac-toe together. I'll start off with an X.
You should choose 3 of the 6 activities, check them off on the record form, and then fill out the student's participation on the record form as well. You must follow these 10 steps to complete the scoring summary. If the client receives 4 consecutive scores of 0 on any subtest, that test can be discontinued and they may move on to the next subtest. In the back of the examiner's manual, you can compute the raw scores into test scaled scores and percentage ranks to compare the student's performance to the typical performance of the same age norm group. The CELF-5 test results will allow you to determine if a student has a language disorder, and the select index scores will help determine and describe the nature of the student's language disorder. The following shows a completed scoring summary record form for ages 9 through 21.